I've made thousands selling digital products on Creative Market. And if you want to do the same thing, there's one thing you need to know. You can't just open a shop. You have to apply and get approved first. And the first time I applied, I actually got rejected. So in this video, I'm showing you exactly how to apply to Creative Market the right way, plus the portfolio that finally got me approved so you can skip the trial and error and get straight to selling. So one of the biggest differences between Creative Market and Etsy is that Creative Market is a curated marketplace, which means they don't just let anyone open a shop and start selling immediately. They actually review your application first and decide whether or not your work is a good fit for the platform. If you look at Creative Market's guidelines, they actually tell you exactly what they're looking for when reviewing applications. I'm going to put the link in the description box below if you want to look into it further. First, they're looking for work that feels amazing and unique. They already have a lot of sellers on the platform, so they want to see designs that actually stand out and feel different from what's already out there. Second, they're looking for high quality work. And I think what Creative Market means by this is they want to see work that feels really well thought out. Did you take the time to think about the fonts you used, the spacing, the colors, the mockups, the layout, or does it look like you just made it as fast as possible? And third, they want a thoughtfully crafted portfolio. They actually recommend having around 10 to 20 examples of your best work, ideally related to the type of products you want to sell on Creative Market. So if you want to sell Canva templates, your portfolio should mainly showcase template work instead of random unrelated designs. Now, if you're someone who's still developing your style as a designer, or maybe you're struggling with your portfolio because you feel like your work isn't there yet, I actually recently watched a class on Skillshare that I think would really help you with this. It's called Develop Your Signature Style, Overcoming Obstacles with a 5-Day Art Challenge by Jenna Blackburn. You know, this whole idea of having a unique style is something I personally really struggled with when I first started selling digital products. I think for the longest time, I was just copying trends, looking at what other people were doing, and almost treating that as my own style because I genuinely didn't really know what my design style was yet. And I really wish I had watched this class back then because a lot of the things she talked about made so much sense to me. One of my favorite things she said in the class is that your signature style isn't really something you go out and look for. It's something that naturally emerges the more work you create. And I love that perspective because I think a lot of creatives put so much pressure on themselves to immediately have this super recognizable style right away, when in reality, most people develop that naturally through creating consistently. That's exactly how I developed my own style after creating thousands of templates in Canva. And I think something that's not talked about enough is that you only discover those things by creating over and over again. You can't really think your way into a signature style. You develop it through repetition, experimentation, and actually putting in the work consistently. Another part of the class that really stood out to me was when she talked about how making bad art is just part of the process. You know, sometimes you're gonna create things you don't love, but that doesn't mean it was a waste of time or bad practice. I think that's such an important mindset to have as a creative person because sometimes the work you make today teaches you the exact lessons that lead to the work you create tomorrow, the one you finally end up loving. That's what I love about Skillshare. It's full of classes taught by real creatives teaching real creative skills, whether you want to learn design, illustration, photography, video editing, or just reconnect with your creativity again. This is honestly the place you want to be if you're trying to grow creatively. I know this is where I am most of the time. So if you want to check it out, the first 500 people to use my link in the description box or scan the QR code on screen will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So before you even apply to Creative Market, there are a few things you're going to want to prepare first. First, you're going to need a Creative Market account. Second, you're going to need a portfolio, which we're going to talk about more in depth in a second because this is one of the biggest parts of getting approved. And third, you're actually going to need a product ready for upload because now, as part of the application process, Creative Market asks you to upload your first product. So that means you're also going to need things like product title, product description, keywords or tags, product photos, and a PDF delivery guide, which is basically just a file that gives the customer access to your digital product. Now, if you already sell on Etsy, you're actually kind of ahead of the game here because you can literally reuse a lot of your existing resources, your title, your description, your keywords, your product photos, your PDFs, and transfer them over to Creative Market. That's honestly why Creative Market never felt like a ton of extra work for me personally, because I was basically repurposing a lot of what I already had from Etsy. So again, if you already already sell on Etsy and already have products up there, you can simply take one of your best performing products and use that as your first upload on Creative Market. Now, if you've never sold on Etsy before, I actually have a full masterclass on how to do that, which I'll link in the description box below. But you can pretty much take the same concepts I share there on how to create your digital products from scratch, along with things like your product titles, descriptions, tags, product photos, and all of that, and use it as a guide for how to also set things up on Creative Market. Now let's talk about creating your portfolio to be submitted to Creative Market. When I tried applying for a new shop again for the sake of this tutorial, I noticed that the portfolio section is now marked as optional in the application process. That's actually new to me because it wasn't the case when I applied years ago. But based on Creative Market's own guidelines, I would still highly recommend taking your portfolio seriously because they clearly still care a lot about reviewing your work and seeing whether your designs are a good fit for the platform. So like I mentioned earlier, the first time I applied to Creative Market, I actually got rejected. And looking back now, I completely understand why because I really didn't prepare for it at all. What I basically did was I just pasted the link to my Etsy shop in the portfolio section and hoped for the best. That was literally it. I didn't create a proper portfolio, I didn't organize my work, I didn't really put much thought into the presentation, and so they rejected my application. So the second time around, I approached it completely differently and actually took the time to prepare for it properly. Now, there are actually quite a few different options you can use as your portfolio for Creative Market. You can use your own website, Behance, Dribbble, and some other social media platforms. But for me personally, I intentionally created a separate website specifically for my portfolio because I really wanted to control the presentation of how my work was being viewed. So I'm going to show you a sample of what I personally did for my portfolio so you can kind of use it as inspiration when creating your own. The platform that I use is Wix. It is completely free and easy to use, so you can pretty much build your website without needing to code or anything complicated like that. But honestly, I don't think the platform itself matters too much. I think what matters more is how you present your work. So if you don't really have the time to learn a website platform, I think something like a Canva website could also work perfectly fine for this. Now let me show you a sample of my portfolio. For the header, what I did was showed my logo in the center, along with some photos of my designs because I wanted that to be the very first thing they saw when they opened the website. Then right below that, I created an About My Brand section where I introduced my shop, explained the type of resources I wanted to offer, what my goals were for the shop, and why I wanted to expand onto Creative Market. And then beside that About section, I created a slideshow of my designs playing on the side. So while they were reading about my brand, they were still constantly seeing examples of my work at the same time. Then below that, I created the actual portfolio section where I showcased the products I plan to sell on Creative Market. Now, according to Creative Market, they recommend showing around 10 to 20 examples of your best work, which is pretty much what I tried to do here. So what I did was I divided my portfolio into different sections depending on the type of products I wanted to sell. I only created 3 sections. So for example, if you wanted to sell Instagram templates, that could be one section. If you wanted to sell branding kits, that could be another section. If you wanted to sell workbooks, that could be another section. And for each section, I basically created slideshows of my best designs and just had them playing on the website while labeling what the products were and what platform they were made for. And then for the last section of my portfolio, I added my email address, another mock-up video showcasing my designs, and I also linked my Etsy shop for anyone who wanted to view more of my work. Then I just ended it with a small thank you note and signed it off with my name. Now that you have your portfolio ready along with what you plan to sell, let me actually walk you through the application process itself. So head over to creativemarket.com/sell and click Open a Shop. If you don't already have a Creative Market account yet, you'll need to create one first before you can start the application process. So this is what the application page is going to look like. You're going to put your first name and your last name, and then it's going to ask what type of products you mainly plan to sell. So if you're someone like me who sells Canva templates, then you would select templates here. Then it's going to ask if you already sell digital assets online. If you already sell on Etsy or another platform, this is where you're going to say yes, and then you can link your current shop. If not, then you can just select no. Next, it's going to ask where they can view your work. This is where you're going to paste the link to the portfolio you created. Then it's going to ask if you'll be creating assets using AI tools. And once you're done filling everything out, you're going to hit next. Now on the next page, you have to upload your first product. So because we selected templates earlier, you're going to choose a subcategory. So for this example, let's say the first product we want to upload is Instagram templates. You would select design, And then under that, select social media. Then you're gonna add your product title. So for this example, we can just type something like modern Instagram templates. Next is the product upload itself. So this is where you would upload your PDF delivery file, the one that contains your Canva template link inside. Then for preview images, you're uploading your product photos here. And then for the product description, you're just gonna describe what the product is, what's included, and how it works. You can use ChatGPT for this, by the way. Next, it's gonna ask again whether you use AI tools. And then for compatibility, Canva actually still isn't an option here for some reason, so I usually just select other. Then for tags, you're just gonna add relevant keywords that people would usually search for when trying to find your product. Now, pricing is where Creative Market is a little different from Etsy because instead of just one price, you actually have different license tiers. They actually have a page in their help center that goes much more in depth about licensing, so I'll leave that linked in the description box below if you want to read more into it. But the easiest way to think about it is personal license means someone is just using it for themselves. Commercial license means they're using it for their business. An extended commercial is for larger scale business usage. So for example, if someone buys your Instagram templates just to use for their own personal account, that would fall under personal use. But if they're using it for their business or brand, then that would usually fall under commercial use. Extended commercial is more for things like apps, website development, video games, or products being sold at a much larger scale. I think this makes a lot more sense for people selling things like fonts, graphics, illustrations, or assets that might heavily be used across those types of projects. Honestly, if you're selling Canva templates like me, most buyers are probably just gonna need the commercial license. I've personally never had someone purchase an extended commercial license for me before. So for pricing, what I personally do is I'll set a base price for personal use, then increase the commercial license by around 30% more. And then for extended commercial, I usually just double the base price. Again, because this type of license doesn't really apply much to my Canva templates, this is honestly just a number I personally came up with. But if you were selling assets that could be used in apps or larger scale projects, then I would imagine you'd probably want to price the extended commercial license much higher. And if you're not really sure how to price your licenses, one thing you can do is go on Creative Market itself, look at sellers in your niche, and use their pricing as a general base point. Just one important thing to note is that Creative Market actually has minimum prices depending on the type of product you're selling. So I'm going to put the pricing table on the screen here so you can use that as a reference. Just make sure that whatever pricing you choose, you're not going below their minimum prices. And once everything is filled out, you're going to hit next, and Creative Market is going to send you an email to verify your identity. Then you can submit your application, and now you wait to get approved. Now, once you get approved, you will get an email and you can pretty much start uploading the products you want to sell right away on Creative Market. The process for uploading products is basically the same process I already showed you earlier when we uploaded the first product during the application process. You can also start customizing your storefront by uploading your logo, adding a banner, editing your shop profile, and just overall making your storefront feel more branded. Now, a quick note about fees. Creative Market typically takes around a 50% cut from each sale, but that already includes things like payment processing and marketing, and there are no listing fees either. Now, what happens if you get declined? If you do get rejected from Creative Market, don't panic because you're actually allowed to submit another shop request again. So if that happens, I would go back to Creative Market's guidelines and really review the areas where you think you could improve. Maybe your designs need more work. Maybe your portfolio presentation could be stronger. Or maybe your products just need to feel a little more unique. That's basically what I did after getting rejected the first time. I went back, improved my portfolio, improved my presentation, took the process more seriously, and then I got approved the second time around. So if you do get rejected, don't let that discourage you too much. Just take it as a sign that there are probably still some things you can improve on before reapplying again. Bottom line, Creative Market has been one of my favorite platforms for creating extra income from designs I already made anyway. So if you already sell digital products or you've been thinking about starting, I definitely think it's worth trying. And if you need a little help developing your design style while building your portfolio, check out Skillshare and watch the class I mentioned earlier. The first 500 people to use my link in the description box or scan the QR code on screen will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It really helps my channel. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!